Is he with the X-Men or not? Is he Magneto or not? Is he dead or alive? There are so many questions surrounding this Marvel mutant. Yes, we are talking about Xorn, one of Marvel's mightiest mutants who also has the most chaotic story arc. In this video, we'll try to peel away the layers of confusion engulfing Xorn, starting from where he originated, his various story arcs, and where he is now, as well as trying to figure out why he is so confusing. Now, before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is just a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. So thank you very much, and let's begin. Looking back at the origins and backstory of Xorn. Marvel's Zorn's original name is Kuan Yin Xorn, who was born and brought up in China and had a twin brother named Shen Xorn. The mutant powers of the brothers manifested when they hit puberty and almost destroyed their hometown, which was a small Chinese village. The brothers were separated from each other because of their terrifying abilities by a community of anti-mutant communists. As their powers formed, Zorn's head burned bright and was replaced by a small star, whereas Shen's head turned into a black hole. Xorn could radiate powerful light that could murder anybody within the vicinity, while Shen's black hole could emit gravity with an intensity to even absorb light. Also, Xorn could alter his star to convert it into a black hole, while similarly, Shen could change his into a radiant, sun-like star. The twins were made to wear iron masks that ensured people around them were safeguarded from their powers. Additionally, Xorn was kept chained up in a secret underground facility while his brother was imprisoned in their hometown in a remote location. Xorn, however, didn't have it easy in prison. When his warden, Ao Jun, got greedy, he decided to trade Xorn for a precious sum to Sublime. Sublime was curious about how Xorn's mutant brain worked and wanted to harvest it for further investigation and for grafting it onto human tissue. But Kuan Yin was not going to give in and decided to commit suicide by transforming his star into a black hole and killing everything around him, including himself. But before he could annihilate everyone, the X-Men found their way to Xorn and stopped him while freeing him from his bonds. The X-Men offered to help Xorn and asked him to join their team. Xorn decided to join the X-Men, but not before enjoying his freedom, which came after almost half a century. He spent time meditating and using his powers to heal, but soon enough, Scott came to him for help to fight against Cassandra Nova and recruited Xorn as one of the X-Men. Xorn came to stay and even taught a remedial class at Charles Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. He was often made fun of for preaching too much attitude, but was loved by his students. He also used his ability to heal to help cure Professor X's paralysis, allowing him to walk again. But from here on, this Marvel character's journey has seen too many confusing twists and turns, leaving fans wondering why and what exactly happened. Xorn reveals that he is in fact Magneto in disguise, who was considered dead after Cassandra Nova's destruction of Genosha. Xorn turned Magneto unveils that he had, in reality, collaborated with the Chinese communists to design this entire plan and strategically plant a fake backstory about Xorn. He even mysteriously undoes his healing trick, sending Professor Charles back to the wheelchair. Moreover, Magneto ends up attacking New York City as a part of his mission to destroy the human race. But the X-Men stop him, and while Magneto is on the verge of dying, he murders Jean Grey. A livid Wolverine beheads Magneto, and that was the end of Xorn and Magneto. Or so we thought. As it turns out, Marvel was not ready for X-Men's beloved nemesis Magneto to die in this manner or kill thousands of humans in New York. Neither did they want Zorn's character gone too soon. So they tried to undo the story and carve out a new arc for both of these mutants. In a later issue, it was revealed that Xorn was only pretending to be Magneto under Sublime's drug-infused command. Xorn was using a drug named Kick, which led him to follow Magneto's ideologies. He was also found alive and well in the collective that Scarlet Witch created by taking away the powers of several mutants in House of M. He finds Magneto in Genosha and discloses why he really took on the pretense of being Magneto. Xorn felt that he could play the Piper to more mutants under the guise of Magneto to fight against the humans. Xorn also tries to transfer his powers to Magneto, but is stopped by the new Avengers. The combined forces of the mutants, or the collective, is then hurled into the sun, while Xorn ends up in hell. Meanwhile, Shen's story arc somewhat came to a standstill, and only continued after Emma Frost found him in the village he threatened to destroy. She stopped him and asked him to join the X-Men, but his partnership with the X-Men was short-lived, as Shen used the black hole to kill several villains in one go and decided to part ways for some introspection. Exploring his first comic book appearance. So Xorn's first appearance was in New X-Men Annual in 2001, and it left fans curious about this new mutant's abilities. The very first page of the comic starts with Xorn looking almost gothic in a metal prison cell in Fengtu, a frozen estate in Ningxia. He's on an iron chair with thick chains crisscrossed across him and a lock to secure them. Even his hands and feet seem to be chained down, and he's in an iron mask that's connected by several tubes, which we think were to contain his powers from burning everything around him. His warden, Ao Jun, is introducing Xorn to John Sublime, who is watching the tied-down mutant on a monitor. Ao Jun reveals that Xorn has been in the state for over 50 years, surrounded by filth and decay everywhere. He further states that the Chinese government never truly understood the extent of Xorn's powers, and that he could have effectively powered thousands of communist smart cities. Instead, Xorn was kept as a weapon of mass destruction in case China ever felt the need to use him against their enemies. The warden wears heavy lead glasses around the mutant and takes off Xorn's mask to exhibit his powers. Only in place of a face is a brightly burning star, and 3 seconds of exposure end up killing 2 young mutant baits present in the cell. Ao Jun puts the mask back on Xorn, curtailing his powers once again. Sublime is impressed and states that he will take Xorn off of Ao Jun's hands, but it will be the mutant's brain that he will most likely use. Ao Jun meets Sublime at a party in Hong Kong and hands him the key to Xorn's locked chains and mask, but the X-Men manage to steal the key, and using Emma Frost's telepathic abilities, they get a glimpse into the painful manifestation of Xorn's mutant abilities. She informs the others of his name and that his face was incinerated by a microscopic sun. She also suggests that he could have been a genius, but was imprisoned instead. Back at the metal cell where Xorn is held, Sublime watches Xorn's extraction on a monitor while his team head toward the mutant. At this point, Ao Jun informs Sublime that Xorn had once escaped prison, and it took them 2 weeks to restrain his powers. As his punishment, the cell was built around him. Ao Jun was more than happy to get rid of this mutant and be free from his warden duties. However, when they open Xorn's cell, they see him absorbing all the light around him. One of Sublime's team members informs him that Xorn probably had a micro black hole in his head and was sucking in everything around him. Just then, the X-Men arrive and defeat Sublime and his goons. Scott and Emma are informed that Xorn's black hole was like an event horizon and had a massive gravitational force that was sucking in everything. Scott concludes that Xorn is suicidal and he decides to help him. He offers Xorn the key to his freedom and a place with the X-Men, which Xorn readily accepts and is released from his prison. Xorn's first comic book appearance was undoubtedly a kick-ass one that kept the fans wanting to know more about this Chinese mutant. But we all know how the story ended up. The story that reveals how Xorn was not Magneto in disguise. So how did Marvel reveal that Xorn wasn't Magneto? In Marvel's X-Men offshoot, Excalibur, The Dream Lives On, we see the aftermath of Cassandra Nova's attack on Genosha, where Charles is struggling to carry a coffin. The coffin is said to contain the body of Magneto. However, toward the end of the comic, we see a mysterious person helping Charles carry the coffin into his abode. It turns out, Magneto is the one using his powers to transport the metallic coffin, and is later seen shaking hands with Professor X, claiming he had to lay low. Moreover, in the next issue, Excalibur, he's back. Magneto asks Charles who is in the coffin. He replies that it was supposedly Magneto, but a fake one. Charles reveals to Magneto that his imposter's secondary power was to come back from the dead, and that he had killed Jean Grey and 5,000 humans in New York City to exhibit his powers. It's safe to assume that the professor was talking about Zorn here, whose body was in the coffin. So, the whole time that Zorn was pretending to be Magneto, the authentic Magneto was hiding in Genosha. He was biding his time to reunite the few mutants who were still alive and take his revenge. It also seems like the professor laid out a path for the Marvel writers to bring back Zorn from the dead with his secondary abilities, though there is no mention of it in Zorn's mysterious comeback. Other notable story arcs featuring Xorn. Zorn's presence at the Institute. So, as it has been established, Xorn was a powerful mutant with extraordinary abilities, which we will dive more into later. But Xorn's powers in connection with Sublime left his presence lingering at Xavier's Institute post his death. This presence, while dormant, seemed to have been collecting information for Sublime about the Institute and the mutants there. The X-Men find out about his presence only after Shen comes to the Institute to be a part of the X-Men. He claims to feel the presence of the conspirator behind his brother's evil doings. An added theory to this claims that it could have been Zorn's essence that left with Annie and her son Carter Gazikanian, but no official source has confirmed that yet. Xorn is controlling the collective. Let's talk about the big M-Day. So Scarlet Witch went berserk and decided to take away the power of mutants, which formed a gigantic mess of energy called the Collective. The energy got absorbed by a mutant named Michael Pointer. Any guesses what his mutant power was? It was to absorb the energies of other mutants, naturally. But because of the surge of mutant energy, Michael was out of control and massacred the Alpha Flight, leaving only Sasquatch. He then continued to attack the new Avengers. Finally, the Collective reached Genosha, where Magneto used his powers to unveil the real mind behind the attacks and also the one controlling the Collective. It was none other than Zorn. While we still cannot completely comprehend how Zorn ended up there, we do know that he tried to empower Magneto with the Collective's power. Iron Man, Miss Marvel and Sentry managed to save Michael from the Collective and fling the energy mass into the sun with Zorn in it. This may be the second time that Zorn had died, but did he stay dead? Let's find out. Coming back to life again at Krakowa. A group of mutants led by Hope Summers, called the Five, resurrected Zorn and his brother Shen, who also died at some point in the series. The Five were a team put together by Charles Xavier to strengthen the Mutant Association. The Five could combine their powers and bring back people from the dead, just as they brought back the twins. Shen and Zorn settle in the mountains in a mutant nation called Krakowa, where they meditate and offer help to other mutants occasionally. Legion also hires them to keep track of himself in case he cannot control his powers. The twins lend their powers to protect Legion as he battles Onslaught and defeats him. Additionally, Zorn was seen battling the Dark Riders when they started their rampage against mutant healers. Does Zorn really have a star for his head? Yes, he does. Everything above Zorn's shoulders is a small but bright burning star that replaced his head when he reached adolescence. While we have seen other mutants with diverse powers, Zorn undoubtedly stands out as extraordinary since he can live without breathing air, eating food or drinking water. His body most likely sustains itself from the energy of the star. And as we saw in his first comic appearance, his head can burn so brightly it can incinerate people within seconds of exposure. Also, he can transform it into a magnetic black hole at will. What is surprising though is that the mutation did not end up killing him. We wonder why, and if you have any thoughts on this, do share them in the comments below. Why can't Xavier read his mind? There are two possible reasons for this one. One is that since Zorn is Magneto in disguise, he could have masked his helmet in some way and used that to prevent Professor X from reading his thoughts. It seems plausible, what do you think? However, in New X-Men 127, when Zorn asks the Professor what he sees when he reads Zorn's thoughts, the Professor replies that he can see orchids in China, a falling star across the sky, and a radiant star of pure thought. But the Professor cannot actually read Zorn's mind because each time he tries, he's blinded by Zorn's burning starhead. Zorn also tries to help the Professor understand what he is feeling and thinking by drawing symbols for Charles to read. Why is Zorn so uniquely powerful? Now let's talk about the powers Zorn has besides using his blinding head to kill people and converting it into a black hole with the ability to possibly implode the world. Both Shen and Zorn had healing abilities. We've seen Zorn use this to heal the Professor's paralysis. They can both also heal significant injuries and battle wounds. Zorn can manipulate magnetic fields. Yes, his star empowers him to use magnetic forces against his nemesis. It's one of the biggest reasons why Zorn was able to impersonate Magneto, but there's no mention of Shen having the same ability. Additionally, Zorn can also make gravity work to his command. In New X-Men 127, Zorn speaks of how he uses his power to control gravity and shake particles in the air to form words and speak Professor X's language. Shen also had the same power, but could this mean that the twins can speak any language in the world using their ability? We think it's possible. The brothers could also float in the air and fly short distances. They could also sense death. If someone was dying or had died in their vicinity, both Zorn and Shen could pick up on those senses. This is possibly why Shen sensed Zorn and Sublime's merged presence at the Institute. Although both brothers seem to have similar powers, Shen has at least one additional one. He can communicate telepathically with others, a power that Zorn lacks. The brothers also lack most sensory organs, but they are self-sustaining. For instance, in New X-Men 127, Zorn says that he cannot see. He can only see things by the light they emit, but he has thoughts and feelings, just like everyone else. What makes Zorn such a confusing mutant? Well, the biggest confusion surrounding Zorn is obviously when he claimed to be Magneto and then said he faked being Magneto and that he was Zorn all along. We've discussed this in detail already, so let's focus on some other traits and story arcs that make Zorn's character so confusing. Shen Zorn and Kuan Yin Zorn have always been a source of confusion. Why did Zorn have a twin to begin with? Shen Zorn didn't have much of a role to play in the X universe, except for joining the X-Men for a short while and then going his separate way. Moreover, Shen's existence was revealed after Kuan Yin died in the X-Men verse. Perhaps the writers wanted him to be the replacement for his evil brother, but couldn't really figure out how to connect the dots. Another mix-up was created by Scarlet Witch, where the writers said she was why Zorn became Magneto. Indeed, this was a point of confusion that came from Marvel's official handbook, Marvel Universe X-Men 2005. The book mentions a reveal by Doctor Strange where he says that Wanda was planning chaos before the House of M by altering Zorn to transform into Magneto. Next, we have Zorn's death-beating ability. How did Zorn return from the dead after Wolverine chopped off his head? Also, is Zorn now a hero, an anti-hero, or is he still a villain? These are questions that we're still looking for the answers to, so if you have them, let's discuss them in the comments below. Marvel themselves have surely tried to revive the character of Zorn in more ways than one to undo the damage of the Zorn-Magneto mystery. Zorn himself is a mutant with unique abilities that haven't been used to their full extent in the comics, but it's very possible Zorn may have a long way to go in the Marvel Universe. What do you think about this? And of course, if you like our content, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't done so already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.